Train the muscles, not the joints.
So welcome back to another workout. Today I'm going to talk to you about a few different subjects as I train a bit of chest. I might bring you through a bit of my back workout too. I don't know if you guys are privileged enough to go through my entire workout with me, but you know what? I'll just bring you through a few steps and then we'll see how it goes, okay? We'll see how it goes. But either way, all joking aside, I'm going to do some bench press today, and then I'm going to move myself into some bent over rows with dumbbells. And yeah, I feel inspired to do some reverse grip chin-ups, or you could say pull-ups, but supinated grip, right? And yeah, then I move my way onto biceps. So as a general sort of structure, that's how my chest, back, and bicep workout works. But I play around with the variables all the time. I play around with the rep ranges, and then I also do some calves. And I did find a neat way of doing seated calf raises just off the stairs. It might not be as great as a machine, but it's still pretty good. It still actually is, funny enough, pretty effective for getting a good burn and feeling pretty good. So yeah, I'll do a little bit of that today I'll do a little bit of that today as well. I'll get my words right. I have to start acting on stage or something in some sort of Shakespearean sort of theater so I can speak properly on camera. That sound right? Yeah. So anyway, yeah, I'm going to do some chest here. The other thing I want to bring up, okay, is that sometimes people will see me do a workout, and then it's almost like you get locked into some sort of Doctor Who chamber where this workout is immortalized in space and time, in the quantum field. So if you do sets of 20 reps or something like that, then people are like, oh, he only does 20 reps. Or if you do, 8 reps, he only does 8 reps. I'm going to tell you that I rep out and then I change the rep ranges all the time. But I find at my age, and as long as I've been training, I find that going heavy, just for the sake of going heavy all the time to test myself every workout, works against me more than works for me, right? So if I'm always doing 275 or 295 on the bench, I find that I just stagnate. So I find it better for me to train that heavy once in a while, and then I go back down in weight, and then I rep out, and then I go back and forth. And the thing is, I'm very inconsistent when it comes down to my grip as well. Sometimes I'll do a little bit of a narrower grip. Sometimes I'll do a bit of a wider grip. And one could argue that's probably not the best policy when it comes down to getting a perfect groove. But you know what? I just do what feels right. I just find out what feels right. And if I was getting results in one area or another, of course I stick with that for a period of time. But sometimes as you've been training for a long time, it seems like your training is just one big plateau sometimes, right? So you're kind of like just going through the motions and pushing yourself in ways that you can. And if you cannot always go up in numbers, what you can do is go up in well-being. Now I know well-being, right? How good you feel, that's very subjective, but I have to say it is a worthwhile thing to pursue and to consider as part of your entire training goals. Because if you're going up in strength, but your body's starting to feel like a wreck, well, one could say that eventually that's going to lead to absolute destruction, right? So you do want to find that happy medium. You want to push yourself, you want to be a warrior, I understand that. And you want to be strong enough to be able to move mountains and hunt monsters in the woods. And I noticed a lot of you guys aren't hunting monsters in the woods as much as I would like. I mean, there's still monsters roaming around back there. You know, guys that use my workout programs, they're still roaming around back there, you know, stealing pets, you know, for their carnivore-like diet or whatever they're doing. I don't know what, they eat everything, you know. And the worst part about it is that they go back there and they use the exercise sticks and they don't even give me any money. That's the thing. And if you're new here, I'm sorry that this joke is going over your head. So anyway, but yeah, so let's go through it. The other thing I'm going to do, when I'm doing my warm-up, you're going to notice that sometimes I touch my chest, sometimes I don't. Again, I just go on feel, where I feel the tension plays out. Sometimes I feel like touching my chest stretches my delts too much. So yeah, I just go with that. So try not to judge me too harshly, all right? So here we go, warm up. The other thing I want to say, I'll wait till I do my set and then I'll talk to you about it here. So that's when I go heavier. I just go to here and out. I feel it's pretty good. I know it doesn't look as cool, but sometimes when I come here to here, it just feels like extra delt stretch. And that's the other thing I want to talk about. There's a guy in the comments, he's asking an honest question. He's a nice guy. He was just saying, isn't constant tension in the stretch portion automatically mean more range of motion? And that, my friend, is a great question. And I will say, no, it doesn't always mean more range of motion, because just like I showed you on the bench here, when I go down a certain way, a certain amount of lowering of the weight, once I get to here, I feel great stretch in the chest, stretch in the delts, and so forth. But if my goal is to keep that tension on the chest for myself, with my individual dimensions and whatever, and injury history and whatever, when I come down lower, I just feel more stretch in the delt, but not more stretch in the chest. So, based on that, one could argue that more range of motion will diminish the tension on the muscle you want to hit, not increase it. So, that's one of the reasons why you will see me use strategic range of motion with many different types of movements, right? So this is going to be different for you as well. I'm not saying this is a blanket statement for everybody, but for myself, it doesn't increase the tension on the chest. It doesn't increase the stretch. So it's kind of like the fire brigade back in the old days. You know, the fire brigade, they come out and they'd hand buckets down the line, right? They'd have a bucket of water and then you'd pass it down to Joe and then Bob and then Mike and then, you know, they just pass it on down the line. Well, when you pass that bucket along, all that tension leaves Bob and goes to Mike or whatever, right? So it's the same thing with the muscles. You'll notice that there's certain ranges where that tension stays on a certain group of muscles, especially in the compound lifts, right? And then it transfers to other muscle groups, right, in percentage. So say it's like 80% one muscle group and 20% this muscle group, then the tension starts to change, and now it's diminished on this main muscle group you want to hit, and now it goes over here. Now, another thing people will say, well, what about isolations? Because say you're only working one muscle group technically, which is pretty tough to do, because even biceps have multiple, they're called biceps for a reason. There's two of them, and then there's also the brachialis, and that sort of thing across the forearm. So what I'm going to say is that there still is that still goes on. But even with isolations, when you stretch past a certain point, then the tension doesn't just change. Let's just say the tension doesn't transfer to another muscle group. A lot of times it'll transfer to the joint itself and into the tendon insertion. And that's when we start to get tears and inflammation or bursitis and so forth. And that's not going to be conducive to greater bodybuilding results, right? So yeah, to answer your question, more range of motion doesn't mean more stretch in a particular muscle group. Not when it comes down to active tension, active stretch, active range of motion. So yeah, this is where theory and practicality don't necessarily meet, right? Because if you talk to somebody, they say, oh yeah, you just move the arm in any one direction and whatever, and that's just, you know, more this degree and that degree, and automatically equates to more stretch. I'll say no, because proprioception plays a role, and you know, joint stability, all these different types of things. So anyway, that's my experience. Take it or leave it. I'm gonna do another set here, warm up. Sometimes I do a couple warm-up sets just to make sure everything's going right. It also depends on how I feel, right? So if there's no template, but say I feel like my front delts are tight a bit, then I'll do a couple extra sets. Today they feel pretty good though. But I did a little bit of heavier shoulder press yesterday. I did a 185 standing shoulder press. So sometimes that'll make the delts a little bit, you know, like say tight or a little bit sore. Today they're actually feeling pretty good, pretty tight. Not tight, but actually just alive. Unlike the trolls that make bad comments. I'm not going to tell you where I put them. The trolls, that is. And which stick I used in order to... Let's just, you know what, I'm gonna leave that for another video. All right, let's go to 225 here. And I'll wait a minute, be about a minute or so, 2 minutes, and then I'll do a set. So, I'm going to say this. Sometimes, as I'm moving up in weight, I will go pretty much to failure on some of the warm-up sets. Now, that's not recommended if you're trying to concentrate mainly on strength, but sometimes I'm trying to concentrate mainly on getting blood into the area. So that way, once I move into heavier weight, I'm less at risk to get an injury, of course. But I don't always do it that way. Sometimes, just depends what I want to concentrate on, but it's good to change it up. It's good to sometimes burn out those endurance fibers, and then other times you want to conserve that energy for the heavy set. So that's also good. So that's why I did that there. I did a little bit closer to failure on the sets, played around with the weight. Sometimes I touched my chest, sometimes I didn't, just to see where am I feeling that tension, you know what I mean? So you want to do these experiments, find out through experience what's happening during your exercise. Don't just follow the mob, the sheep mob, and the drug guys telling you on TikTok what to do. Like, it's crazy, man. I see so many guys on TikTok, they're full of drugs, and then they're saying lots of bullshit statements, and they're being idolized. It's crazy. But it's the way it's always been, right? Where people who take the quick path, you know, they take the quick and easy path, they a lot of times get put on a pedestal, but the fact is these people aren't helping you. They're just creating some sort of bullshit illusion that looks pretty neat for a short period of time, but if you live your life that way, you'll probably end up in a swamp, you know what I'm saying? Like, so, yeah, you have to refine your own experience. That's the most important thing. If you follow just blindly what people say, depending on who's saying it, and depending on where they're coming from or why they're saying it, it could lead you into bad waters, you know what I'm saying? So anyway, let's do another set in a minute or so. I'm gonna go up in weight to 275, I think. I'll do that today. All right, so yeah, I did quite a few reps on the 225 there. did a couple warm-ups, chatted to you guys. See, I don't need to go to a mainstream gym. I got training partners right here, see? You guys are like helping me out. You're shitty spotters though, that's all I can say. Your spotting skills are freaking horrible. So, like there's not one time I felt you guys lift the bar for me or help me if I was hitting failure. Not one time. So, you guys are harsh, that's all I can say. You're hard trainers, that's all I can say. All right, here we go. You know, one thing I gotta be careful with is that if I push too hard, I'll push the ceiling off my house. So if you notice I'm not using more weight, it's that's really the main thing I'm considering, you know? Anyway, just thought you guys should know. You know what, I got an extra rep on the last set there, but that might be due to the sponsorship of this video. Actually, they're not really sponsoring the video, but it does give me a good excuse to say that I ate some Haagen-Dazs last night, and I probably shouldn't have, but I gained a rep on the bench. So, like I said, when you get fatter, your bench goes up, and sometimes water retention from eating shit food can do that too. so anyway, it's important not to measure all your progress by whether you get one more rep on the bench. That's all I can say, because yeah. If you're a fat guy, you can get more reps on the bench too sometimes. Okay, this brings to mind something. This is the other thing some of you guys really underestimate, and unfortunately, most of the people that will benefit from this advice have probably clicked off the video by now. So, what I'm going to say is that when you use strategic range of motion, you will notice that your strength will start to go up again, or your strength endurance. Because I find that when you overstretch the tendons or put your body into really awkward sort of movements over and over again with heavy weight, it almost, well not almost, a lot of times it actually moves you backwards when it comes to strength. It makes you weaker because you overstretch the wrong things. You're over, let's just say irritating things. And there's such thing as the Golgi tendon reflex. And if that gets irritated or stimulated, sometimes it will shut off stimulation to the muscle, right? So I'm just guessing here. This is like bro science, I guess. But all I can say is that when I find the right range of motion and not hyperextending the joints or overstretching them, I find that the body starts to respond in a positive way and I start to put on strength instead of losing it or being stuck just at a plateau. Take that advice or leave it, you know, whatever. But the body has a tendency to adapt better once you start to work with it instead of just pummeling it to death. That's maybe a way of explaining it. All right, let's do one more set. I'm just going to do 3 sets of 275. All right, last set. So that's 3 sets of 275. It's good. I did a couple sets of 225 for warm-up. Maybe I did one set of, yeah, I only did one set of 225. Okay, but that's fine. Like I said, I feel like the pump is there. Yeah, get some good intensity, and then I can move on to something else. So yeah, it's not always about volume, but sometimes I do 5 or 6 sets for chest. Sometimes I'll do 7 or 8 sets sometimes, or 10. I've done high volume, but then sometimes I'll go through stages where I just push hard and then move on to something else. So I guess it's like a periodization, but I don't do it on purpose. It's just sometimes just how I feel, right? Based on what I need to do for the rest of the day. how much video editing I need to do and so forth. Like a lot of you guys think that, hey Jason, what do you really do for work? Well, guess what? I mean, I'm running a couple of YouTube channels and doing the podcast every week on Patreon. So that pretty much takes up my time. Like in between filming, training, and you know, answering comments and emails, you know, stuff like that. That's pretty much it. It takes up quite a bit of time. So anyway, yeah, that's what I'm busy doing, man. So here we go, last set. You know what? I gotta do one more set. All right, last set. Last set. Motion. All right. For purposes of not making this video too long, I'm going to end it here, but thanks a lot for watching. Let me know if you like this format, and I'll go through different body parts while I'm bullshitting with you guys and teaching you some tips and helping you out in whatever way I can. But in the end, keep fighting the monsters in the woods, and I'll see you in the next video. Motion.